Hello everyone, this is LMTV and welcome to my crib. And have you ever looked at a Disney princess and thought, wow, I thought we were over this already. And it turns out that nothing was really changing at all. We have all been there, especially watching Cinderella over for probably the fifth time and realizing that what the king was saying was probably not alright. Either way, I'm going to tell you that you are not crazy and that this is a common occurrence within the Disney movies and that can be traced back to misrepresentations of women and girls in these movies and also relationships. Today, I will be talking about two specific types of misrepresentation, which would be sexual orientation and also coupling in relationships. Let's get started. We all know and love them, but we also grow to hate them, especially since they've been in the movie business since about 1923. As you can see through these clips, that they have definitely had a hold on Disney and animation for quite a while. They have been able to create different worlds and things that were otherwise impossible. It was during this time where it got really popular because people were seeking the delusion. They were seeking not wanting to be part of the real world, especially since it was just around the end of World War II. They have created over 62 animated classics, and those are 13 of those are Disney princesses. Their popularity, which has changed girlhood forever, with the popularity of Snow White being due to its technological advances and new storytelling for the time. It started a trend for Disney to start marketing these Disney princesses to the masses of retellings of grim fairy tales, with a new, fresh, modern take that reflected the values of the time, which were often wartime values. This created a kind of lack of importance for independence, agency, and more. This would create what we think of Disney princesses that reflect the highest ideal of a woman, just from pure fantasy. This is the classic Cinderella, blonde, kind, quiet, submissive, and married. Now, what they seem to be pulling back into the adaptation from Snow White to the newest Asha. They have become an integral part of the culture, whether we like it or not, and Disney is losing the reputation they have because of it. I will be focusing on Cinderella, Ariel, and Elsa, and their misrepresentations across relationships and sexual orientations, said or unsaid, and also how their behaviors had unforeseen circumstances, and also how they've impacted the way that we've grown up in very big ways. Since Disney, we all watched them and we all loved them. There's no way that they were not going to influence us. Firstly, Cinderella. It's a story we all know and love, and it's time to dig deeper into the reason why that she has become the saving grace or the saving example for a lot of the movies that would precede, and also the effects they had on little girls after. Goes along the life of Cinderella, whose mother had just recently passed away, and then her father remarries an evil stepmother. When she married him, it was only for the money, and then once the father dies too, the stepmother continues to basically treat her as her own maid in her own house, and maid forces her to do impossible tasks, giving her the nickname Cinderella, as she was always sleeping under near the fireplace or covered in cinders. So one day, while she was dreaming and wishing for a way that she could leave this place, the prince of the kingdom unwillingly agrees to invite all the women of the kingdom to a party that the prince's father wanted to throw so that the prince would finally find a queen. Now, he invites all the women in the kingdom. This means Cinderella too. Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were livid, thinking that she would not be able to go, and she shouldn't be able to go. So they create a lot of elaborate plans that derail all of her tasks in order to become worthy enough in order to go. But she completes all these tasks with the help of her little animal friends. As she keeps trying to complete these tasks, they continue to torment her, to the point where when she was about to go, they tear up her dress right in front of her and leave her behind. She then cries to her fairy godmother, in which she responds. The fairy godmother has a plan for her, but she knows that there's only so many things that they could do for this plan. She tells her, "Find me a pumpkin, the mice, and a lizard." She then finds these things, and the fairy godmother turns them into a carriage for her to go. Though there was a catch. She would only be able to go if it was before the strike of midnight. So then, once she goes to the party, She falls in love with the prince, and the prince falls in love with her. But yet, midnight came, and she had to run off. So as she runs off, she drops her shoe. The prince uses this as a way in order to find her again. Once the prince finds her, what she has to do afterwards is try to survive back in the house, knowing that nobody else knew that it was her the entire time due to her beauty. Though, as the prince makes the rounds and tries to find who owns Cinderella's slipper, going through the kingdom, he finally goes to their house. The stepsisters give a try first, and so does the stepmother. They then try to convince him that there's no other woman in the house. Cinderella then comes down, puts on the shoe, and this is where the most issues arise, because she is seen as this perfect little being, and that she just obeys everything that her stepmother would tell her. And despite all that continuing kindness, then she is awarded with marriage, and nothing else and no more. She will be the beginning example that we will use for the rest of this area sequence, and also the Elsa sequence. But just because of how firm and solid and very, very clear Cinderella's roles are in her movie. Now, after talking about Cinderella, now we will get on to Ariel, and how, due to the changing times and when this movie was released in the 80s, how women were starting to work more, it still was progressive, but not progressive enough, and could be better. We will go through and how she really embodies the women's roles of the time, but also an incredible impact on relationships and goals of young women. Though starting off pretty good in the beginning, later on kind of trailed off. Let's get deeper into it. So, the Little Mermaid. Ariel was one of the youngest daughters of Poseidon, or the King of the Sea, and she has this innate want to explore the world. But her family is the one thing actively trying to keep her from it. She sings a very heartfelt song about wanting to see another world and breaking free with her expectations from her father to be just like what the next queen should be. And with these feelings, she goes to her little area where she has all of her collections, and she continues just to dream about it. And after that, she ends up meeting Eric on a shipwreck that had happened. She was very curious, but ends up saving him just because she almost love at first sight. He does not know her because she can't really interact with humans without getting completely banished by her father. So with this, she was longing for humans, and she tries to rationalize with her father, but her father says no, not in a million years. She then goes to the sea witch Ursula. Ursula has an ulterior motive of wanting to rule the entire ocean. So after what she does, she realizes that she can take advantage of Ariel's love, and that she's fallen in love with Eric. So what she does is that she takes her place, tells her that she needs to go on land, get Eric to kiss her, and then she'd be on land forever. Ariel takes this deal without realizing what she got herself into. After a lot of awkward sequences later, Eric then gets seduced by Ursula using her voice in order to change the repercussions and try and take over the ocean. And with this, Ariel tries to save them both, but right when it was the wrong time, she falls down to her knees. Though Ursula, having the voice, she's able to turn to basically big villain. Then Eric is the one forced to save Ariel. Once he does, they're able to go together. Ariel leaves her family for Eric, and they get married. Happily ever after. Though, for the women's roles that were changing during this time period, they embodied a lot of independence. And since then, women in the workforce have increased from 34% in 1950 to 52% in 1980. Women in the workforce today are still expected of the roles of being an at-home mother, but the roles of being a successful businesswoman as well. Needing to hold both of these together, there's a very huge increase in home labor and inequality and how much work they have to do on top of what other responsibilities they also have. And we're still to complain about it because people say, oh, isn't this what you always wanted? Isn't this the autonomy that you need? But it's not. And this was just the beginning of it in the 80s. So now with the new millennium comes a new age of Disney princess, and with this, in 2013, is Elsa. The story of Elsa begins with a scene of ice being cut in the Northern Isles, but It also shows that Elsa and her sister Anna used to be very, very close, but it was until an accident that happened with Elsa's magical powers to which that all completely changed. They then fast forward all the way past to Elsa's coronation for being queen after the parents die. This creates a newfound fear for Elsa, which is letting her powers go and people finding out who she truly is. This terrifies her. Anna is completely oblivious. Anna in the story is like the classic Disney princesses, a little naive, love-stricken, and kind. She is so excited to have a party at the house, but the moment that her sister starts to get nervous and she stretches her out with a fiance that will become important later, is that then after that her powers slip. Everyone gets scared. Elsa is scared. She then later on tries to fix this, but knowing that she can never go back, the townspeople start to get exiled for her. Now she, out of a fit of fear, she accidentally freezes the entirety of Arendelle, and Anna, now almost next queen, even though her sister is, she tries to send a search party to go find her. Hans made a suspicious order in order to try and help her. Either way, Anna finds Kristoff, and Kristoff is kind of a very brooding and dark person. At the same time, he shows kind heart, especially to his favorite reindeer, Sven. They go on an adventure in order to find the sister, and as more magical things happen, all of these stories start to tie up as Kristoff family is also the same trolls that helped Elsa back when she was little to control her powers. Now, with Anna after confronting Elsa for the second time in order for her to come back and change Arendelle back to summer, she then realizes that, oh my goodness, my sister hurt me again, and she shoots her powers again and accidentally hurts Anna. She is absolutely livid. Things are tensing up. Anna is searching around. She thinks that a kiss from her husband, or her fiancé Hans, would help everything, but instead, he betrays her. With this, the only way to defrost her heart would be another form of love. As they're running around trying to figure it out, it turns out that love was the sisterly bond after all. And that is the summary of Frozen. But later on in the movies, she then finds out more about herself and her family history. Critical that Disney focuses and addresses that these different ways that they have portrayed stereotypes and also portrayed different ways of living could really affect later on, and that if these continue in a lot of movies, that they would not be beneficial for the children today. Why it's important to progress in this area of misrepresentation is that it really affects the viewers and it becomes a part of their delusions. This has been studied in the article called Does the Glass Slipper Fit? Disney Princess Films and Relationships and Beliefs and Attitudes, as discussed before, but they create unattainable fairy ideals which are far from the truth, and that children will grow up with the idea that they will have to be a certain way in order to be loved, which is incorrect. This would affect with relationships and coupling, which has been shown in Cinderella and Ariel, and not in Frozen. Another misrepresentation would be sexual orientation. And in the article, Beyond Queering Elsa, the erotics of touch in Disney Frozen series, it talks about how Frozen destabilizes the heteronormative gender roles and conventions that Disney has been circulating since 1937. These deceptions of sexual norms and also like the subversion and repetition with variation, it echoes that marks a significant change in the representation of women, namely princesses and authoritative women with magical powers, and the relationships between them in Disney animated fairy tales. This is also very important as it blew up significantly on the internet, and that helped so many children and so many kids start to feel more seen as kids that would have to hide their identities and would have to struggle through because it was not currently accepted, which is drastically different from Cinderella, where it was just told to be perfect and everything will be fine and you'll get married. Throughout Disney films, it is shown that they have no interest in furthering sexual orientation, though with coupling and relationships, they have made a lot of significant changes with such. In Just a Glass Slipper Fit, Disney Princesses Films and Relationship Beliefs and Attitudes by Hefner and Kress, 2021, it discusses the relationship beliefs and attitudes that were formed by a lot of by watching Disney movies and romantic beliefs, and how they affect relationship and contingent self-esteem, and how it changes the perspective on a lot of relationships and studied upon a lot of different ways to see. It talks about how it affects viewers and that it becomes a part of their delusions that they really start to internalize all those unattainable fairy tale ideals, which are far from the truth. The children will then grow up with the idea that they have a certain way in order to be loved, which is incorrect and can seriously change what real love could look like for these children. For those relationships, it would seem almost not shocking that they have done almost absolutely zero for sexual orientation. And then, for the character that got the most backlash for their orientation, was not even addressed. It was completely unaddressed with Elsa, and it was the first uproar that happened because there was no romance. Even though there was common romance in most of these movies, and a lot of people spoke out against it, thinking that it was an innuendo for the LGBTQ community. Though, it was just the absence of it. But in the later movie that would come out later on, they did something that we call queer baiting. But let's get deeper into it to get to that point Disney has made. In these 85 years after coupling relationships and sexual orientation, as we've covered, is that they've really only shown ways that women could be themselves and have autonomy, but still find importance in family and classical types of ways of living, which is not necessarily the best because they still struggle with a lot of other things not mentioned, such as age groups, like we did mention sexuality, but also race. But for coupling and sexual orientation that we have covered, they have improved a lot, where the last couple Disney movies like Moana, Encanto, and Brave, that they were able to really focus on the characters themselves rather than relationships. Though a lot of these, like Brave and Brave, where she very outwardly avoided love completely through the movie, and it almost became its own plot line as well. But there's not as many movies where it just doesn't cover it at all, and it's not a necessity, and it's not a need. It's still around and present in other characters, such as Elsa's sister, and Maribel's sister, but I feel like there's a need for a new Disney princess. One that is kind of like the old ones, except that it is based off another fairy tale that nobody's touched yet. So this is the introduction of my new princess called The Princess and the Pea. I felt inspired by Disney's want to recreate different Grimm's fairy tales, and I thought it would be beneficial for it to really incorporate the classical storytell feel and touch a story that hasn't been touched yet for a very long time for mostly its subject. But here's the story, and let me know if you like it. So, the story is set within a small kingdom that has a young child king and an advisor. It is rumored that the advisor has been trying to find a successor or wife for the young child king, but for his own evil plans that have not been exposed yet. But this little peasant girl will happen to completely destroy all of his plans. Based on Princess and the Pea, the young girl will stumble upon the castle due to unforeseen circumstances, and she will meet the innkeeper. The innkeeper knows that she would only be able to stay in the castle if she was one of the princesses that the advisor is trying to find for the young king. Then what happens is that they start to find more and more about the reason why he's the young king and his parents are not around, because of a death that had happened and that the advisor supposedly murdered them. in trying to expose the advisor, they have to find a ring. This ring has one single green pearl on the top of it that is bigger than anything ever imagined, acting as the key. They have to go and search through the entire castle to find it. Once they finally find it, they're able to overthrow the advisor and hope the Child King becomes a child again and not have to rule. After a lot of adventures, this does happen, and it's very dramatic and very interesting. Then, once the prince is free from his duties, he realizes that, "Hey, innkeeper, would you like the ring and become queen?" The innkeeper agrees and she becomes a wonderful ruler, but she chooses the peasant girl to be by her side as queen and queen. And this would be a great story to represent different types of sexual orientations, but in a classical Disney princess setting, which could still appeal to a lot of people and bring a lot more perspective. This would create a well-needed representation for agency, sexuality, and being bold and taking your life into your own hands and falling for who you want to fall in love with. And comment down below what you think about my idea of Princess and the Pea, whether or not it'd be beneficial for what we covered throughout this video, and any other reviews that you have, please put them down below for any next videos. Thank you for sticking around for this vlog. This is LMTV calling out. Have a good night, and see you in the morning.